He runs the nation's finances, but today the treasurer was in a Sydney court defending his personal reputation. Joe Hockey described how his father broke down in tears over a Fairfax headline that he says implied he took bribes.
So Peter Overton's introduction touches on the news value of the story. His opening line, he runs the nation's finances, positions Hockey as a well-known public figure. This story is news because of Hockey's prominence in the Australian news cycle. The other thing Overton's introduction does is focus on the tabloid and human interest aspect of the case, mentioning that Hockey's father broke down in tears, for instance. That's how Layla McKinnon's report is going to continue, with Hockey's initial reaction shown as quotes in a graphic.
When Joe Hockey awoke to the headline, "Treasurer for Sale," he was stunned, devastated, absolutely devastated. He said it implied I was corrupt. Asked whether it was true, he said no, emphatically no. In the federal court, it was Joseph Benedict Hockey versus Fairfax Media Publications, a defamation trial. The Treasurer said after reading the story, his daughter asked me if someone was trying to buy me, and his father broke down in tears when I rang him. The headline and the story, alleging the North Sydney Fund provided access to the Treasurer for exorbitant fees, was displayed on placards, newspapers, websites and tweets across the country.
So this sort of story presents a significant challenge to the TV journalist, that being the lack of good audio and good vision available. Not only is this a court case, but it is a court case about words, and that's not something easily captured in a visual format, unlike a crime where you might have footage from the scene. Nor are Hockey or Fairfax especially colourful characters, like those who often get involved in legal battles. So we see many different graphics throughout the report, quotes chief among them. Often these quotes are laid over images of the speaker, and that's another form of attribution on top of McKinnon's script. And key words are even emphasised by being put in a different colour, and it's unlikely that a print piece, for example, would italicise or embolden part of the quote, so I think this is a uniquely television touch. Other graphics include an image of the front page that sparked the defamation suit, as well as these other headlines from Fairfax's publications.
Fairfax media editors described the business body in private emails as a slush fund. Mr. Hockey described it as a kind of chamber of commerce whose membership fees fund Liberal Party marginal seats and not his own re-election. The Treasurer argued the media bosses targeted him out of petty spite, revenge for being caught out and forced to make an earlier apology. His barrister argued it was malicious and deliberate. Regarding the apology, The Age editor Andrew Holden emailed his Sydney Morning Herald counterpart.
So ultimately, the chosen underlay for this report is pretty cliched and pretty uninventive, thanks to that lack of available vision. The most uninspiring shots you've just seen include footage of outside the Fairfax office and Fairfax defendants passing through the security check. So maybe here's where courtroom artists or dramatic reconstructions might have been useful, but I think they're probably reserved for the more scandalous or sordid cases.
Saying the simplest approach is to dig into North Sydney Fund. In that story, you can run Hockey's claim he knew nothing. Beyond that, expletive him. The media company's lawyers argued Mr. Hockey himself engages in robust political debate and put to Mr. Hockey the North Sydney Forum's entire purpose was to capitalise on his personal franchise, in effect, selling access. Is this the kind of thing politicians should take on the chin, Mr. Hockey? Mr. Hockey will return to the stand tomorrow. Layla McKinnon, 9 News.
Now that last shot, with McKinnon attempting to question a departing Hockey, is definitely the most editorial interesting in the package. Hockey's unwillingness to answer, which is totally commonplace for someone involved in a case before the court, might suggest to some viewers that he's elusive and therefore start to influence their view of the case. Being television, McKinnon's script could afford to be more casual than a print piece, for instance, but she rarely takes advantage of that opportunity. One example, I guess, is perhaps her use of Hockey's full name, Joseph Benedict Hockey, which is referring to the case's name, but it also helps to add a somewhat playful tone at that moment. It would be difficult to replicate that beyond TV and radio without the journalist's spoken voice. This is a national news broadcast, and considering hockey is the federal treasure, the actual proximity of the viewers to the courtroom was of little consequence to it. I mean, he is a prominent Australian, and therefore the interest extends beyond the city and state that it's occurring in. The same would probably not be the case if the plaintiff was a figure from one of the state or territory governments.